Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we even begin, I am going to mention that it is a partly cloudy day and the sun is coming in and out, so I apologize for the lighting. Please excuse the changing light and white balance conditions. As you can see from the title of this video, it's about menstrual cups. I've seen quite a few videos on YouTube lately about menstrual cups. It's almost like it's a trend at the moment, but I've been using menstrual cups for 10 years now, 9 or 10 years. So it's not new to me at all. Once I switched, I did not go back, and you'll probably hear that from a lot of people, that you're gonna love it and you're never gonna want to use anything else once you begin using a menstrual cup. But I was super reluctant in the beginning to try it out. I had heard about them through a message board I was on, and every time it came up in discussion, you'd always have people raving about them. It was mainly the Diva cup at that stage, just going on about how they love their Diva cup, and you'd always get people commenting going about, oh, isn't that so gross? Or I would always think it was gross. I would think, I don't want to really have to handle the blood from my period. I just want to throw it away. I don't want to have to wash things and deal with things. Like when it comes to bodily fluids, I just want it to go away and not have to deal with it. But eventually so many people were raving about the Diva cup that I decided to give it a try. And I bought one, and it cost about, I want to say £40. That's what I remember, is it being super expensive. But obviously if you think about the costs of tampons or pads, you're going to make that money back, or it's going to pay for itself within whatever period of time, depending on how expensive or inexpensive your menstrual cup is. So before I go into my experience and tips and tricks and all about the menstrual cup, I do want to talk about some of the benefits. Like I mentioned, you are going to be saving money, especially if you can buy a less expensive menstrual cup, which I'll get to later in this video. You are going to save so much money not having to buy tampons and pads every single month. I know there are reusable period panties and things like that. I just don't really want to have to deal with the laundry. I have quite enough already, thank you very much. And I also don't want to be sitting on my period blood. No matter how well it's wicked away from the body and absorbed, I just don't fancy that. And also, once it leaves your body and is exposed to air, it can begin to smell, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So period panties are just not for me. I haven't tried any, but I'm not going to, partly because they're so expensive, and partly for the same reasons that I don't enjoy wearing pads. I don't want to be sitting in my period blood. So because you're not buying and disposing of products all of the time, it's better for the environment. You're not creating any waste that's going to go into landfill. You're just using the same thing over and over again. A menstrual cup can be used for years and years. I have replaced mine. I will get to that later in this video. But you can just use it for years and years on end, and you're not creating disposable waste all of the time. Obviously, it's better for your wallet. I've worked out that I've saved over $1,000 on my periods in the time that I've been using menstrual cups. And yes, that's over a period of like 10 or 9 years, but still, it's $1,000+. Like, who wants to spend that if they don't have to? They're also better for your health. Period cups are made of medical grade silicone. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I haven't even showed it to you. This is one, and I do have a different style as well. They come in different styles. I'll get to what they look like, what they're about, how to put them in and out, how to care for them in a minute. But that is a period cup. So they're also better for you than using tampons and pads, because there are no chemicals involved in it. It's medical grade silicone. You sterilize it by boiling it, and there's no nasties going into your body. You absorb chemicals and things through your skin, and especially in the vagina, the skin or the membranes are very thin, and you're going to absorb goodies from whatever you're putting in there. They use so many chemicals on tampons and pads, bleaches, and I don't know what all. And of course they're made from cotton, and unless that cotton is organically grown, there's pesticides on it as well. It's just not great. I also found that I would get rashes from pads. Also some panty liners, if it's not the breathable kind, if it has any kind of a waterproof backing, it will give me almost like nappy rash or like diaper rash. It will get really sore and kind of raw, and some pads do that. Tampons can be very drying. Obviously your vagina is like this amazingly designed thing with a pH balance and flora, and natural lubricant and whatever, and when you're putting a tampon in there, it's going to absorb everything. It's going to absorb your period blood, but it's also going to absorb all of the good stuff that you need going on down there, and it can leave you really dry and just out of balance. Of course, there's always the risk of toxic shock syndrome as well when using tampons, and while there is a slight risk of that with menstrual cups, it's vastly reduced, so you can rest easy knowing that you don't have to worry about that as well. Yes, you can use organic tampons and organic sanitary products, but they're not going to overcome the problems of the absorption and drying out your vagina like any tampon would, no matter whether it's organic or not. Whatever kind of sanitary product you are used to using, you may find, a lot of people find, that when they begin using menstrual cups, the cramps are reduced and flow is also reduced. I don't know if it's actually physically flow is reduced or if it just seems reduced since it's contained in a cup that you only deal with twice a day, rather than kind of splashed all over a pad or a tampon that you will see and feel. And like, when a tampon is full and it's absorbed and, you know, it's at maximum capacity, it looks like a lot of blood, but obviously a lot of that is tampon, so you can't actually tell how much blood is in there. But many people have reported reduced cramps and reduced flow when using menstrual cups. I certainly found that to be the case. I mentioned only having to deal with it twice a day, and that is my favorite thing about menstrual cups, is you only have to deal with it once every 12 hours. Any way that you deal with your period is going to be kind of gross. I mean, I've kind of got over it. It's my period, it's body fluid, it's not radioactive waste. Like, just calm down, it's just blood and uterine lining, like, get over it. But I mean, it's not fun to deal with. But when you're using a tampon, you're changing it every 3 to 4 hours. Same with pads, I guess. I don't use pads, but with a menstrual cup, I empty and rinse it and reinsert it in the morning and in the evening, and the rest of the time I don't have to think about my period. I don't have to deal with my period. I don't have to be switching it and changing it and carrying stuff with me, and it's amazing. Now I know what you're thinking, because I've had so many people say to me, oh, I bleed like a crime scene. I would fill that cup up in an hour. I'd have to be changing it all of the time. You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. On my heaviest days, when I was bleeding like a stuck pig, I would have to change it maybe one extra time. So I'm dealing with it 3 times a day instead of twice. But they hold quite a lot. They hold, well, that's 15 mils. They are actually measuring doodads on it. But the fullest I've ever been is pretty full, like to there. And that was on a super heavy period. When it got this full, I actually began to feel it. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it felt warm. Like, I could feel it was full of warm blood, and I knew it was time to change. But you can change it as frequently as you want. Not change it, tip out, rinse and put back in. You can do that as frequently as you want. You don't have to wait 12 hours. Once you get to know your flow and how many times you need to check it and empty it on your period, like maybe on the first day you're having to do it once every 6 hours, but maybe on days 2 and 3 you can do it twice a day. Whatever, you'll get to know your pattern. You can empty it and check it as many times as you want while you're learning. You'll be surprised though. You'll be like, I've been cramping and normally I'd be flooding and bleeding. I'm gonna go and check my cup. And you go and check and it's like up to there, and you're like, why was I panicking? You'll be surprised. Another couple of advantages I wanted to talk about are that you can use the cup before and after your period. Now, I wouldn't just pop it in any time, but if you know that you are due on your period and you're pretty regular and you're going to come on at some point that day, you can pop in the cup that morning and you're ready for it when it happens. You don't have to wait to begin your period to then start using it like you would with a tampon. I suppose you could do the same if you used pads, but with a tampon you generally have to wait until your period begins and then start using the tampon. The cup you can have in, like I said, before your period starts. I wouldn't do it for weeks on end, but if you're not super sure when you're going to come on and you know you're going to be out and about all day long and not have access to bathrooms very often, pop it in the morning and you're good to go. And if you don't come on that day, you come on the next day, it's fine. It's not going to kind of dry you out the way a tampon would. Also, at the end of your period, if you're like, have I stopped? Is there more? Am I spotting? you can keep the cup in and it's not going to be a problem. You'll notice that there's not much to tip out. So you can have it kind of beginning and end of your period and use it on either side more than you would be able to with tampons. And another great benefit is that you can swim with this in. It's not a problem, you're not going to leak, and you can just carry on with your life in summer. You can be at the ocean, you can be at the pool, and you can be swimming and no one's going to know you have your period. Okay, so let's talk about the actual cup. This is what it looks like. This is what the Diva cup looks like. This is not a Diva cup. Before you use it, wherever you buy it from, you want to sterilize it. So you have a saucepan of water and you boil that and you pop that in and you boil it for 20 minutes. And that's long enough to kill any germs or anything that might be on the cup. So you want to do this at the end of every single period. Once you know my period's over, I'm done, you give it a wash, soap and water, and then you boil it for 20 minutes and then let it air dry naturally, and it's ready for next time. As I mentioned, I have 2 different cups. So there are different cup styles and sizes. They generally come in small and large or medium and large, and one is for if you're over 30 and if you've had children, or if you're under 30 and or if you haven't had children. You need to just figure out which is yours. There's a couple of millimeters of difference, but obviously if you've given birth, or even if you've been pregnant and had a C-section, or if you're over 30, your vagina is not going to be as toned and tight as it might have been before, and you're probably going to need the larger one. So figure out what size you need to buy, and then you buy your cup, and they generally have a tail on. This one, you'll notice, does not have a tail on, but the one on the right does. I haven't actually used this one yet. I just wanted to try a different type. I'll tell you about where to buy them in a minute. The different types feel different. This one feels more squishy, this one feels firmer, and this is a very thin and flexible tail. The tail on this one was harder, and I find that I don't need it, so I just cut it off. You can do that, just make sure you don't actually cut into the actual cup and create a hole. But the tail is maybe that long, and some people need it to give it a tug to get it out, some people don't. It depends on how long your vagina is and how far up this is going to sit. I've heard people talk about suction before. It goes in and it kind of suctions and stays in place. This does not suction. If you put it on and it created a suction, you'd pull your cervix out when you try to remove it, and it would be extremely uncomfortable. In fact, it deliberately has little holes in the side to prevent suction. You can see a hole there, and on the other side there's another hole there. So it doesn't actually physically suction. Like, I can't squeeze it, put it on my hand and have it suction, because the air is going to come in the side, and that also allows air to kind of escape as it fills with blood. So you can get different colors. I've got a pink one here, a white one here. They do sometimes stain a bit with extended use. They're all made of medical grade silicone. If you have an allergy to that, you are a very rare person. Most people can handle medical grade silicone and not have any problems. I do have one friend who had a problem with it, and she used to get a rash and she couldn't use it, but that is definitely the minority. So the cup looks like this. It has markings on the side, 7.5 milliliters, 15 milliliters, which is a tablespoon. So if you are having a lot of flooding and extremely heavy periods, it is actually helpful to be able to tell your doctor, I'm losing 15 milliliters every 3 hours or whatever. So they know, like, heavy for one person might not be heavy for another, but if you have a measurable amount, that's actually quite useful. I never look at those. In fact, I never look at my cup. First I'll talk about insertion, and then we'll talk about tipping it out and seeing what's in it. So insertion, you're thinking, okay, that's quite a good size. Like, how am I going to get that up there? What you do is you pinch it in half, and then you fold it over. So it's like that. And then you pop it up there, release it, it'll pop open. And sometimes it pops open, but it's kind of flat. You want to kind of spin it. Just make sure it's well situated. If it's not situating itself well, push it a bit further up and then wiggle it. It will go in and it will find a natural place to sit, and you won't feel it. You won't feel it at all. If you feel it, it's in wrong and you need to wiggle it around a bit. The other way to fold it is to press down on the top and pull back. So it creates like a point. Oops, get my finger out there. So if you can see there, that corner is folded in and it creates a point. And that's the other way to fold, and you can put it in and have it pop open. So this one's different, but you do exactly the same. Either fold that point, so you kind of press in the corner in, like that, or just fold it in half, like that. With anything new, there's going to be a learning curve, and there can be a learning curve with these. So don't think, oh, I'm going to try that quickly before I leave for work. I'm just going to pop it in and see how I go for the day, if it's your first time or one of your first times using it. Do it on the weekend, do it when you've got a bit of time and you can situate yourself in the bathroom, and take as long as you need to practice getting it in and out and folding and inserting and making sure it feels comfortable and that you can't feel it. You don't want to do it in a rush like I did once. I think it was my first cycle using it, and my mom had been visiting and I needed to drop her off at the airport, and we were kind of running a bit late. Before we went, I thought, I am so heavy on my period today, I better just empty this cup and pop it back in, just as I know that for the hour drive to the airport, saying goodbye, seeing my mom off, and the hour drive home again, I'm going to be safe and it's not going to be leaking or anything. I just wanted to be sure that it was empty and back in and ready to go. But we were kind of running late for the airport, so I rushed to the bathroom, pulled it out, emptied it, rinsed it off, put it back in, and rushed out again to go and take my mom to the airport. The whole way there, I was like, that does not feel good, like it's really hurting, and I kind of knew I'd put it in wrong. So what I'd actually done is, this is your cervix, right? So it's kind of like a little pouty mouth at the top of your vagina, and this is supposed to sit like this. But what I'd done is I'd like put it in and it popped open, and it was actually like that, and it was tucked up to one side of my cervix. I assume that's what was happening. Obviously I couldn't see inside there, but I think that's what was happening, and it was extremely painful. I mean, if you've ever had your membranes swept when you're pregnant, you'll know it's not comfortable when something's pressing or rummaging around on your cervix. Anyway, drove my mom to the airport, and I could feel that I was just flooding. I was like, that cup is not in the right place, it hurts like a dickens, and I can feel myself getting wet. And I dropped my mom off at the kind of like park and go. I had Noah with me, he was a baby, he was in his car seat. So I dropped my mom off, said goodbye to her, she took her stuff and went, and then I had to go and find parking, get out the car, tie my cardigan around my waist to cover the big blood stain on the back of my pants from where I'd flooded everywhere, get Noah out of his car seat, into his buggy, and then walk miles to go and find a bathroom so I could pull it out and put it back in properly, not tucked up behind my cervix. And I just flooded all over my knickers and my jeans, and thankfully not on the car seat, but it was a nightmare, and that's because I was rushing. Don't rush. If it hurts, pull it out and try again, or wiggle it, give it a bit of a tug. It's not supposed to hurt, you're not supposed to feel it, and if it hurts and if it's uncomfortable, it's in the wrong place and you are going to leak. If it's in the right place, you're not going to leak, you're not going to have any problems, or you shouldn't have any problems. Sometimes I get kind of spotting, and I think it's because you pull it out, empty it, put it back in, but obviously I'm not going to go inside my vagina and kind of wipe down the walls, and I think there's just a bit of blood or like uterine lining that comes out from there, and there can be a little bit of spotting, but like wearing a panty liner is fine to deal with that. No leaking from the actual cup. So like I said, I change it morning and night. In the morning I'll get up and I'll go and empty it out then, and it might be like that full, and then in the evening, at the end of the day, I just empty it again. My friend actually gave me the tip to do it in the shower. That's just easy to pull out, empty, give yourself a wash, give your cup a wash, and pop it back in. Now, you're supposed to pull it out, empty, and then rinse it. And that process initially, before I started using one, kind of grossed me out. I just pictured myself walking around with this like cup of blood, and I was like, oh, I don't want to see it, I don't want to be handling it. That's just gross. It's not like that at all. So you're sitting on the toilet, you're going to reach up, kind of bear down and push a little, and this will come there. Or there's a, whatever, a little handle to grab. There's ridged bits at the bottom here. So I'll just kind of reach up and grab that and kind of twist and wiggle and pull it out. And as you pull it out, you just like ta-da into the toilet. You're not seeing it, you're just holding it by one little tip. And because my toilet is separate from my bathroom and I can't reach the basin from where I'm sitting, I'll give it a wipe out with toilet paper and then I'll reinsert. And like I said, if I do it in the shower, then I can give it a proper rinse or wash and reinsert. If you're being grossed out about doing it in the shower, it goes down the drain. I clean my shower weekly. It's period blood, it's not fecal matter. Let's not get carried away with like, ew, gross, it's period blood. Just get over it. It's not going to kill you. Like I said, I clean my shower. It's the same as your dirty, greasy hair water going down the drain once you've washed your hair. It's not that gross. In previous homes, the toilet has been like right next to the basin. You can tip it out, reach over and give it a rinse while you're even sitting on the toilet, and then just reinsert. You don't have to like wash with soap and water, just rinse off the old blood and then you can put it back in. Once your period is finished, so you're like, okay, we're done for it this month, it's over, then like I said, give it a wash with soap and water. I just use whatever hand soaps at the basin, but I'm not particularly sensitive, I'm not going to react to that. And then go and boil it for 20 minutes in water. I was asked by somebody if I have a separate pot that I use for my menstrual cup. No, I don't, because A, it's clean when I'm boiling it, and it's not going to like leave a bunch of chunks or anything in the pot, like it's not a big deal, it's already clean. And B, my dishwasher sterilizes everything anyway, so you can just chuck it in the dishwasher and it's good to go. You don't even really need to sterilize, boil it every single cycle. I don't do it every single time. If I'm particularly busy and I'm like, I just don't want to have to deal with that right now, I'll give it a good wash with antibacterial soap, let it air dry, and it's fine. I mean, you're putting it in your vagina, you're not putting it into like an open surgical wound or anything, and it's clean. So you can do whichever way you feel more comfortable, but I've got a bit more casual about it and don't actually boil it every single time, and it's fine. So in terms of storing your cup, this cup came with a little bag, and it is a cotton breathable bag. A lot of them come in a bag. I think I've had one before in like a satiny bag. You can store it in the bag. What I do is I wash and rinse my cup, I flick it dry like that, I just flick the water off, and then I just pop it into a ramekin in my bathroom cabinet. So you can see here how it's stored. It'll just air dry in there and it's kept away from, I don't know, dust and everything, and it's fine stored there. Now in the past I used to store my Diva cup in a little plastic container with a snap-on lid. It was an airtight container, and I think one day I didn't fully dry the cup before I put it in there and sealed it, and then the next month when I went to use it, I opened up and there was mold growing on it. So disgusting, and you can't actually clean that off. Like, I just had to bin it because mold resists water, so if you try and like bleach it or like, really, I think it was time to just replace it. So I tossed it, and then I looked for one in New Zealand and I found one on a website called Pig Tits and Parsley Sauce. So I'll link it down below if you're interested. I think that was about $36 or something. That was fine. I used that cup for years, and then very recently I accidentally burnt it because my stove takes so long to boil some water. So I had the pot on the stove with the stove turned on, and I had some water in there while I was boiling the kettle, because that's what I normally do, is I boil the kettle and then I pour the boiling water into the pot, and then it's boiling and then it gets going. So while the pot's heating up on the stove in a bit of water, I'm boiling the kettle, I had my cup in the pot, and then of course I got distracted. I don't know if I got a phone call or the kids needed me or something, but I got distracted and I forgot about it until eventually I was like, what is that sizzling sound and what is that smell? Walked into the kitchen and my poor little cup was lying in a hot dry pan, and it was all like singed at the bottom and brittle and peeling, and I was like, ugh. So then I had to replace it, and I went on AliExpress and I bought me a cup, and it's absolutely exactly the same thing. It cost me less than $2 and it works exactly the same. I think it might be slightly smaller, but it still works, it's fine. And then the other one that I showed you, because I wanted to see the different ones that AliExpress had to offer, I went and ordered this one. This one I think was about $6. So it is more expensive. It's a slightly different shape. It's about the same size that way. It hasn't got the measurements on the side. This one is kind of firmer. This one's very squishy. But I mean, they're about the same. If I'm doing that, they're about the same. So there you go, a cheap option for menstrual cups, AliExpress. They're absolutely exactly the same thing, and they work the same way, and they are a fraction of the price. So there you go, that is my experience with menstrual cups. That is my opinion on them. I think they're amazing. I think they're great for saving money, saving the environment, saving the hassle of carrying sanitary products around with you and having to deal with it like multiple times a day. I mean, like I said, I've got over it. It's my period. It happens. Let's not make a fuss about it. But at the same time, I don't want to have to be dealing with it all the time when it's happening. And that's what I love about menstrual cups. Pop it in, empty it once in the morning, once in the evening, and you're good to go. And you just don't have to think about it the rest of the time. It'll see you through the night. It'll see you through a heavy flow. If you're concerned, tip it out more often than twice a day, but I don't need to, and I'm perfectly happy with that. So that's my video on menstrual cups. I hope you found it informative and helpful. Do give it a try, especially with AliExpress. It's so inexpensive, it's worth giving a shot. You might find that it absolutely changes the game for you in terms of your period, like it has for me. If you already use a menstrual cup, I would love to know which one you use and how you found it and what your thoughts are, so do leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.